committee.
And so this bill makes important improvements to CMS enforcement processes by amending existing powers. Once commenced, this will allow the Secretary of State to make an administrative liability order where the paying parent has failed to pay an amount of child maintenance without the need to make an application to court.
Well, there we are. So applications don't need to go to court. And some might say that improves the administration, makes it quicker and faster to ensure that non-resident paying parents pay. And that's fine, as long as it's accurate. Well, joining me now is a retired solicitor who's got experience of working with the CMS, Richard Vizik. Richard, thank you for joining me this afternoon on this important issue. Just tell us about your experience of working with the CMS. Obviously, it's a big department, it's a very important issue. What's your experience of your sense of their ability to get things right?
Well, what you've just shown with your earlier interview with Mark and Lee just shows exactly the sort of problems happen on a very wide scale indeed. And obviously, I'm very sorry to hear the story you showed earlier with that. And obviously, the latest changes they're making are going to make the situation even worse because it's going to give the CMS the power to actually issue, a bit like the post office, you know, they can actually be prosecutors and then carry out administrative liability orders very quickly without the ability, as you said, saw earlier, with the challenging of the actual calculation. So that's highly unfair on the people like your Mark and Lee earlier today. I mean, just on Mark and Lee, I'm very happy to write a letter in connection with that. If they have these problems in the future, obviously likely to do with the way the CMS is. And in connection with this programme. Also, I would like to thank yourselves at the Reform Party for actually voicing these concerns, because usually when I take part in these consultation papers, no one at all actually seems to be writing in on a professional basis, if that makes sense. A lot of people of us in the profession are actually quite scared, to be honest.
Really? So when you say that, scared because you're dealing with a government department or because of future work? Why would people be scared?
It's both of those things, really, because at the end of the day, there's quite a lot of pressure not to do that. So it is even I'm actually feeling scared as I speak now, to be honest. Yeah.
I mean, Richard, well, I'm very hugely grateful that you have come on to talk about it. And, you know, when you are nervous of that, I think whistleblowing, it's really important because at the end of the day, we all just want to get this right. We want the calculations to be accurate, to people to pay promptly. And I think all of us who pay taxes, and we just want the government departments to get stuff organised. And when you touched on, I used the same concerns about another post office scandal. It feels to me that we've got to put pressure and we've got to have the courage to call out this department, to say, come on, folks, you surely can do a lot better than this.
Absolutely. There's nowhere for people like Mark and Lee to go, and the idea of having to travel miles and miles for a court hearing, only being given a month, which quite frankly, even as a solicitor, it's actually very hard to actually do that and work out what to do with an appeal process. That's very nerve-wracking as well, quite frankly, especially when it's completely unfair and wrong in its calculations. So there are definitely problems in that area.
And I think that's right. And indeed, Mark and Lee, they were nervous talking about it here in the studio. I'm incredibly grateful they did. And just finally, Richard, there's the ability to change a calculation. How does that work? And is that sensible and fair if your income has changed?
It's very, very difficult because you get 25%. If your income goes down by 25% or more, then they will change it. But it takes 3 months plus extra time of processing. So effectively, you have someone who's down 24%, let's say, there's no change in the income, which is very, very difficult for people in that situation. And worse than that, the CMS is tightening up on enforcement at the moment and broadening its reach generally. And at the same time, it's not actually given access for other, people who are in the position, Mark and Lee, to say, well, my expenses have gone up. As we know, inflation has rocketed, interest rates have got, those are not even taken into consideration. So you've got a horrific cocktail there of problems for people facing this situation in the CMS.
And on the other side of it, Richard, in your experience, because already we're getting lots of comments coming in, there are people on the other side who are saying that that their former partner haven't paid for years, and the CMS says there's nothing they can do about it. It feels to me it's like neither side is happy in this.
It's a difficult problem, obviously, but the problem about enforcing too hard is and certainly the cases I've seen, quite often they are wrong about the calculations. They don't give, even when someone wants to pay and can pay, they actually just suddenly go off and put a garnishee order against the employer to get the money out, which damages their reputation. So they're very, very aggressive with the CMS. And I think they should be almost working with the actual paying parent, for example, to give them more chance to look at how they can reschedule debts and actually even write off debts. But this money isn't going to be got by from the CMS the way they're actually trying to do it.
So that's a key point. So finally, Richard, almost like, could you not have like an interim payment while the calculations are being clarified and got exactly right? At least if an interim payment was agreed faster, that might be a sort of halfway house compromise solution.
I think it's a very good idea, but the CMS are very hard to get hold of. So it was on something like where Mark and Lee were there. There's actually very hard for them to get in touch with somebody who can actually make those decisions, or even actually to deal with their queries, so to speak. I mean, it's actually hard to even get a balance on the computer on your CMS account.
Sounds like hard to talk to
not the post office, to be honest. Yeah.
It's hard to talk to anybody down any sort of outsourcing service or anything, HMRC or whatever. Richard Visick, thank you so much as a retired solicitor for joining us and sharing that.